Hi everyone, it is MelloMikeUK, and once again I am joined with the lovely Lady Genevieve.
I put on very aggressive eyebrows today for no particular
I
reason.
appreciate it. You've got the really harsh brow, you've got the nice blue, like it's all popping for me.
Well, I
All
figured it would
popping
be
for
a
me.
nice contrast because last week we were talking about how great warm colors are and that they give off a certain vibe. So I thought, right, let me do the opposite of that because I want to be as unapproachable as possible.
I don't know if you realize that you're actually going with Dotta's colours for this week.
Oh, oh, I didn't know that. I don't know
She's got.
anything.
I didn't think you did that intentionally, but I did think, oh, has she done the blue to match like Dotta's aesthetic for this year?
I had no idea.
Okay, so like last week, we are going to be going through the running order of this week's second semi-final taking part on Saturday. We're going to have a look at the seven competing artists. At the moment, we haven't heard the songs, we haven't heard the snippets, and the press hasn't heard the songs either. So we don't really have anything to go on except for previous participations in the contests, reputation. So everything today discussed is being taken with a complete pinch of salt, and we will go into later this week and see how the songs will fare. Okay, we've decided to go through the running order in our own personal running order this year, and we're going to look at sort of the more unknown acts. Last week was a very competitive semi-final in terms of veteran names in this contest, whereas week two we have quite a few unknown acts and only arguably two names that are considered the big names of the week. So first, we're going to start off with Julia Alfrida with the song "Rich." This, of course, was the P4 contest winner back in August, I believe. So she is sort of the wild card to get and go to Mello. There's very little to sort of speculate with Julia, as she is still very much a very new artist. The song has been written by Yumi Janssen, who, of course, is a Mello writing veteran, as we know, and as well as Melanie Bebb, who wrote for the Mamas last year on Move. Apart from that, I it's very difficult to anticipate the P4 contest winner. I think they've been doing this way of selecting the web card act for 5 or 6 years now, and to this day they have never progressed past fifth place. If I remember right, this is going back a few years, Genevieve. I think you were quite a
Smilo.
fan of Smilo.
Yeah, because they had a bop and they should have gone to AC, but
I think Smilo are the closest that the P4 contest has ever come, but they had like a really good team behind the song. They had, fantastic. If I remember, it was really big stage production. It was a really loud, bright number. Which is, the P4 contest winner typically always seems to be a lot more understated and quite dark. I think we had the Lovers of Aldara a few years ago as well, who were very bright and very colourful on stage. And it's not something we get to see with the P4 contest winner. And I think there's almost no expectation on this act. It's an unknown act, and that's the point. It's to give an unestablished name in Sweden the opportunity to compete. I'd like to think that she has a chance. It's very easy to get this wrong in terms of predictions, and she has little to go on, but she has two great songwriters behind the number. So there's not really much to talk about at this point until we hear the song or hear, at this point, we don't even know what the style of the song is going to be. Is it going to be a pop act? Is it going to be an urban act? Judging from her personal aesthetic and style, I would assume that, this is going to be a pop number with maybe, a slight edge to it. I don't see this as a classical, mellow pop number. But at this point, it's too early to speculate. But I think it's going to take a lot for Julia to have a chance to progress, even though I've said this isn't the most competitive semi-final in terms of names, and we know names is a big element of doing well in this contest. I don't particularly see it. You're already starting out as a disadvantage when no one really knows your name, and majority of the P4 contest winners have finished either last or second to last. So we'll have to see. Do you have any personal expectations of what we can see from Julia, or anything that you'd like to see? as an unknown artist, and this is her opportunity to put a stamp on what to expect from her. So what would you see?
Well, I don't know if it's necessarily a point of discussion about her specifically, but just in a general sense, the fact that we only really have three names in this semi that we more or less know are most likely, most definitely going to qualify in some capacity. That means that one of these newcomers that people aren't really checking for as much is going to go to AC as well, most likely. Unless we got a huge upset and one of them went direct. Wouldn't that be the
True.
gag? But
That would be huge.
yeah, but it is kind of fun though that this means that one of these people or one of these acts is going to get to advance further in the contest in a way that maybe they didn't necessarily expect when they were first announced and they didn't know what semi they would be in and who they would be competing against. I don't know anything about these newcomers, so I do know that Jimmy is a good writer, and we had him on for an interview last year. I didn't do it, but I think I wrote the questions and I just sent them to Lisa and I said, here, ask him these questions. He was really nice and he's very chill, laid back, clearly very talented. I don't know if anyone remembers, but he actually competed in Mello before about 1,000,000 years ago as an
Twice,
artist.
I think.
Oh, did he?
Did it.
I know he
He
competed
did.
at least once.
He had Amanda, and I can't remember. It was a song in Swedish. I think it was 2005, but he went directly to the final. So he's been there and done that. And if I remember right, I think Jimmy. It was either last year or the year before. Jimmy had more songs as a songwriter than
It was last
anyone
year.
else. And
Last year, yeah.
I mean, that's great. You know, we're used to seeing the same sort of names with all the songs in the contest. So to see someone like Jimmy Jansen, who has written so many good songs in previous years, you know, it's nice to see he's getting his recognition. And it's quite interesting in that respect to have the pairing of an established songwriter in this contest with the P4 winner.
Yeah, well, the
And
same goes for Melanie because she also wrote on Patrik's song. We're not going to talk about him just yet. We will in a bit. But she's written on quite a few songs and she's actually really sweet. She posted, because Lisel already posted her interview with Patrik, which is a really good interview, by the way. Everyone should go watch it. And she posted about it on her Instagram story and she tagged both Lisel and myself. And then she and I started messaging. And she was super nice and friendly and encouraging of us and what we're doing. And she was saying she really liked the interview. And she was surprised that people on Twitter were saying nice things about her because some of the fan tweets for Patrik kept mentioning him because they've written together quite a fair bit. Again, I'm trying to not overshadow. I'm trying to not talk too much about Patrik. But I'm just saying that. So she's been in the scene because I remember being on the tour and she was almost always there because she would be a writer. And actually, I think she's going to be releasing an EP of her own soon-ish or whatever. So clearly, if you yourself as the artist don't necessarily have the experience, it's definitely nice to go into it with a song that has a writing team that knows, they know the ropes, if that's the right expression.
It is a little bit more comforting, you know. Again, it's very tricky to anticipate with the P4 contest winner, but I think having a song by two very established names, you know, Melanie is just coming off her first win as a songwriter in Mello. It's a good start, you know. She is starting very much at, you know, page one, and we don't really have expectations, but it's a good start. And, you know, look at Little Sister last week. No one was really expecting much for them, but when the cameras went live, you know, they blew everyone away. Julia's going in the same slot in number 2, and maybe she will bring something that will completely surprise the audience, and she could upset and take one of the what we deem as the remaining spots to progress into the top 4. So we'll see. Okay, moving on to the second act that we're going to discuss this week, and that is the return of Eva Rydberg and Eva Roos. So Eva Rydberg participated in Mello in 1977, and I believe the partner in this, Eva Roos, this is her first time competing. The song is called Rina Rama Ding Dong, which is just... I don't know if you've seen the Eurovision movie, Lady Genevieve, but there's a song in it called Ya Ya Ding Dong. I can't help. it was a big joke, like the Will Ferrell's character in it. They would sing this, they would be like, oh, who wants to hear a Eurovision song? But in this folksy town in Iceland, they were like, no, sing Ya Ya Ding Dong, which is really like sea shanty kind of song. It was good fun, but it's been a meme across Twitter, the last year, and I can't help but think, maybe there is this influence of having Ya Ya Ding Dong now. We have Rina Rama Ding Dong. It's what this is going to be. This is going to be good fun. They're going to get up. They're going to be, the drunk grandmothers at the wedding who are going to grab that microphone and say, this is our moment.
Is it going to be up tempo?
I would assume. With a title like Rina Rama Ding Dong, you'd assume there's going to be a bit of tempo behind that. I don't think this is going to be, we've seen acts like this, to much older contestants that sing something a little bit more like slow down. I remember Sani Solomonson returned to the contest, I think 2015, with another veteran female performer, and they performed something called It Was Nonetheless, and it was really like a really gentle, quiet ballad. And we get a lot of those acts, but I think this is going to be something a little bit more up tempo, a little bit more, let's get up, let's have a dance. This is very unlikely to compete for any place in the top four. We know that Melodifestivalen is a TV show that looks to please every age demographic watching. And every year they will include the much older act, someone in their 60s or 70s. And the point of that act is to have some, either form of nostalgia or something for the much older age groups to connect with, to have some sort of connection with the show. And this is what this act is all about. But this act has never really been a competitive act. I say that. We had Uwe Thornqvist completely upset, 4 years ago, when he made it into the final. And I remember he was in the same semi-final as Fo and O, who were like one of the big favourites to win the entire contest, and only went to Andra Hansen, whereas Uwe Thornqvist went through to the final. So this is Mello. God knows what the Swedish public are going to vote for this week. I personally don't think it will be these two ladies, though.
Yeah, well, you pretty much covered all the talking points, particularly if people are going to have an attitude when they're singing. I think those people need to remember that producing a television show with the goal of getting as many viewers as Melodifestivalen usually does means you have to have something for a lot more demographics than whatever you yourself happen to fit into. Because for as much as I love really up-tempo, bombastic shows, I don't think it would make for as engaging of a viewing experience for most people if it was just half an hour straight of just aggressive, over-the-top, dramatic, exciting numbers. It becomes very one note, even if it is my favorite note. So I don't know anything much about their professional or artistic history, but I'm never surprised when I see an entry like this where all the 18-year-old or 16-year-old stands on Twitter just don't get it. And I'm like, well, it's not for you, and it's not for me either.
No. At the end of the day, it's like you said, this is a competition, but it has to have its peaks. And it has to go up and down and up and down. You can't have 7 competitive entries in a semi-final, because as much as that would probably be great for us as those who love the songs, it doesn't make for good television. You need to have variety, and this is exactly what this act is. It's going in number 5. It's going towards the end of the show where we have 2 much more competitive acts going after it. The point of this number is to break it up. It's to have that little break where we can have a smile, have a bit of a dance. Like I said, who knows? Maybe they could progress further. Maybe they will place in the top 5. But the point when putting this lineup together isn't taking away someone else's slots for this. There is, of the 28 slots, there is a certain position that needs to be filled across all 28 acts. And this is a very important one. So only time will tell, but I'm sure that regardless, they'll put on a really fun performance that'll make everyone smile on Saturday. Moving on to the third song of the week, and that is going to be song number 3 in this week's lineup, called 90s Talent by the duo WAHL featuring SAMI. So my understanding is that this is a new collaboration, that these are two individual artists who've decided to come together for the contest this year. And I know very little about them in their individual careers, but the title 90s Talents, you kind of would assume that this is going to be the rap act of the year. You know, I think most years in the last 3 or 4 years now, we've seen at least one act that kind of goes for the demographic of hitting the rap fans. So by the looks of it, this is going to be that act. I think of the sort of unknown acts, this has got a good chance of placing in, you know, taking that last lot that we're talking about. Rap isn't typically done very well in Mello. You know, the funny thing is that rap is an extremely popular genre in Sweden. And I think for the last 2, 3, maybe 4 years, rap music has like specifically Swedish rap music has dominated the market more than pop music has in general. So it's really interesting that it's such a big and popular genre in Sweden, but come Mello, this is a genre that doesn't tend to do so well. And, you know, that really does show that, you know, what necessarily works on the Swedish market may not work in Mello. But I mean,
Are they both rappers? Or is one of them a singer and one of them a rapper?
I'm assuming that WAHL is the rapper and SAMI is going to be providing like vocals in the chorus. You know, very little has been sort of said on the song and what to expect from the song. I don't think I've seen anyone talk to them either. So I think it's very open at this point for interpretation of what to expect. But I would assume it's going to be, you know, a rap act with maybe a melodic chorus being done by one of them, especially when you have, you know, the featuring in the middle of their two names, you know, so that signifies to me that there's going to be some sort of melodic vocals. It's difficult to tell, you know, you had OVO, which was the rap act in the first semi-final last year, which didn't place well at all. I think that placed 6th or 7th place, but it's Mello. You know, anything could happen.
Well, when it comes to rap or hip hop in general, I think there's a greater likelihood of it doing well if you maybe go a bit more up tempo, if you have a strong melodic component, not just by having a singer, but in what is on the track. If we think about Berang Miri, Yalla Dansa Sawa, that's still a bop.
That popped.
You could send
so
that
hard.
today, and I would go, "Ooh, that's better than most of these other things." Albin and Matthias, that was another one where Albin is rapping more than Matthias is singing, but it has a decent production. It's up tempo, and also they have really good chemistry. So I don't know anything about these specific artists, but if we're more so talking about urban music in general, and also Liamo, first time he came, he would rap and then he would sing in the chorus. And I think Liamo also has an advantage because he was already pretty known coming off of a win of Idol, and he's very hardworking, he's very good at performing, and addressing the elephant in the room, pretty privilege is a thing. So obviously that's an advantage. If you have it, you have it. So I don't know really about these two specifically, but I would just say that I don't think that it's impossible for rap to be appealing, and not just rap, but hip hop. Mm-hmm. You can have that in there. I think if you can have a really good song, I don't think the genre really matters. We saw last week with Lilla Sister where, yes, rock entries don't have the best track record, but it's not impossible for a genre to win people over. So,
and like you've just said,
speaking more generally, but
well, like you've just said, you know, Lilla Sister wasn't the ones that everyone was particularly looking at last week. But come yesterday, when the first Spotify streams came out, of the 5 songs that were released, Pretender was by far the most successful. It debuted at number 7 on Spotify. It had over 85,000 streams, whereas the next highest had about 40,000 streams. You know, so it just goes to show, just because it's not a particularly, common genre done in mellow, doesn't mean it can't be successful. And I think, like you said, if a genre is done well, it doesn't really matter what genre it is. It just needs to be done professionally and to a good standard. So I'm open to interpretations, and if this act can pull it off, then possibly they can have one of the top 4 slots. So moving on to the 4th act of the week, we are looking at Frida Green, who will compete in the 4th slot on Saturday with the song The Silence. There is a lot of hype going into this act this year. Frida is a completely new artist. I believe this is her debut single, and she is known for competing on the Swedish version of Got Talent. And I believe she made the final as well. So she's relatively unknown in, the pop industry in Sweden. So she will go into Saturday as a very new face. The thing that is getting people very excited and why there's a lot of hype going into the set is purely the songwriting team. We have got Bobby Lundgren, David Lindgren Zacharias, Joy Deb, and Anna Bergendahl. And I believe minus one name on this song, this is the exact same team that put together Kingdom Come for Anna Bergendahl last year, which was one of the 2 big fan favorites. So I think, we're expecting something on the waves of Kingdom Come. Anna co-wrote both on Ashes to Ashes she did 2 years ago and Kingdom Come, and it's very clear that Anna has a specific writing style. And you've obviously got Bobby Lundgren and Joy Deb on this song, which are very good at producing a melodic, catchy chorus that is easy to sing along to and very easy on the ear. So I think there's a lot of potential promise in this act. And I know a lot of the fans are very excited for what Frida is going to do. There are rumors that Anna Bergendahl was considering singing this song herself in the contest, but decided last minute not to do it. So the song has ended up with Frida Green. In terms of what to especially, expect from Frida, she seems a competent vocalist. I've seen a couple of her videos on YouTube, and she's a good singer. I'm guessing that she has a certain vibe that obviously appeals to this song. And I think we will see that country pop has, ever since Victoria debuted in Mello 5 years ago now, country pop has kind of really found a success in Mello and has made it to the final almost every time under the right circumstances. And make no mistake, Frida is in, it's not that she's in a really tough semi-final, but she has 3 much bigger names to go up against. So my money, and we've said that we think there's the 4th slot in the top 4 that's open to take, and my money would be on Frida. I think that this is going to be something very easy for the Swedish listeners to listen to. I think that the international fans are going to love this. I think there's a lot of promise. We'll hear the song later this week, but I think before we've heard anything, I think this has a lot of potential going into Saturday night.
I would say the biggest unknown variable with a lot of these newcomers, or not newcomers, but the 4 that we've just gone through that people are not necessarily checking for as much, I would say the biggest unknown variable is their show, the staging, the performance. Because even if you're trying to gauge what type of artist they are with what song they bring, we saw last week that what a song is in the studio is not indicative of how competitive their stage show will be. So I think that can really make or break this week as far as who is going to stand out more and maybe make it into the top 5 or make it into AC, is down to who can do the best performance that is going to showcase their song and themselves as an artist and performer the best. beyond just the song, because I don't think that last week's results were indicative of this is how good your song is. This is how much I want to stream your song. This was, what did you do for television? What did you do for the people that are watching? So that's really what it's going to come down to. So I think that's what makes it so fun to watch, is that we don't know. And yeah, it's nice to go into it and have, oh, well, I know Arving Arna are going to win their semifinal, but it's nice also to just not have any idea, and then you can have a surprise. I remember the first year that I watched Melodifestivalen was 2012. Nobody was checking for David Lindgren, and then he ended up having the best number of the year. That's fun. That's fun when a person comes out of nowhere and you don't know what they're going to do, and then they do a thing and you go, wow, that was something.
We have seen, over the last decade, this is really a contest for the veterans, and 90% of the time, or maybe 80% of the time, it is usually someone who has done this contest multiple times who ends up going on to win the whole thing. But in those rare years, you have that moment that no one expected, despite what people may think of the songs themselves. No one saw the likes of, Robin Kramberg. No one saw him coming. 2010, Anna Bergendahl was not a name anyone was checking come her semi-final. 2016, I remember it was all Ace Wilder versus Molly Sandine. And then Franz comes from underneath them both and had a huge victory. And, it's very rare and it's very difficult for a more unknown act, and especially a debutant act, to go on to win it. But like you said, if you in 3 minutes can convey your message and that appeals to a greater mass of people, sky's the limit. And then I guess it's just on PR really, and that's really what it comes down to. And that's how, as a new act, you do well in this contest. So I think the other thing that I'm sort of looking for from Frida is, I think one of the great things, we've seen over the last decade now that Mello is kind of like a graduate school from Idol. Like Idol is kind of like your university, and then once you've done and you've completed it, Mello is kind of like the first real job you do next. And I think that's really good. But I've noticed from the Swedish Got Talent sort of franchise, it seems to be a lot less competitive television experience. So it's also interesting to see, can they connect with the camera? Do they know how to hit their cues? Because that's also really important as well. And that's why those with a lot more television experience end up doing better, because it's their shtick. It's what they do. They know how to connect to the camera. And for a lot of these newer acts, they may look at it as a contest and want to sing out to the fans and to the people in the audience, but those aren't the people who are voting. You need to, look down that
There's
camera.
no one in the audience.
Especially this year. Big potential, but as well as the potential that is there, this act could easily crash and burn if the staging isn't up to par, if, this is someone that I am aware of that who is very big on their vocals. So if the vocals, aren't up to scratch, this is Mello and anything can happen. Okay, so let's move on to our first real competitive name of the semi-final, and that is Patrik Jean with the song Tears Run Dry. This has been written personally by Patrik himself as well as Melanie Webb. I think the lot of hype that's going into this is Patrik and Melanie together are the two writers behind Move for the Mamas last year. So they are technically returning as a winning songwriting team, and it's I need to put it out there. I'm so excited to see Patrik. Patrik is not, he's a new artist to Mello, but Patrik has been on the scene for quite a number of years now. He's released some consistent bops. He has visuals, like he's done some great music videos that I know Genevieve will be able to talk about more.
He edits all his own videos.
This is someone who has a creative eye, a creative ear, who has an image. He's written his song. I'm sure he will have had some sort of say in the production of his stage number for Saturday.
He's not doing this with a label.
No, this is just someone who is good at what they do, and they are talented. And yeah, to most people, no one has any clue who this guy is. And I'm sure to the majority of people watching the show on Saturday, this will be just another new name as it is some of the others in the semi-final. But this is someone that comes with a lot of experience, talent, and you can't buy that. And you just know he's going to ooze charisma. He is going to look great. He's going to sound great. There will be a stage show. This is someone who obviously understands aesthetic and concept. You're not going to have him just standing on a stage with a microphone for 3 minutes. I am very, very excited. We'll touch on it later. There is a very clear favorite to win this semi-final, and it feels we have two names who are competing for that final spot. I would adore to see Patrik go through to the final on Saturday. Before we've even heard anything, I have a lot of faith in this act.
Patrik is one of the names that I'm most excited to see in the semifinal because he came on and he did the interview with Lisel, and he has such a good vibe about him, but he also has a lot of experience. He's done a lot of songwriting, and he has been in the Mello bubble before, but I think that's an underrated advantage that people don't always factor in, is that when you're a songwriter, pre-Rona, mind you, when you're actually allowed to be in the arena and seeing everything be developed firsthand, and you can be in, well, not every songwriter is around as much, it just depends, but he's seen the circus, and I'm sure he's been able to see the rise and fall of different artists, songs, performances at the contest. So that's also going to inform you when you're trying to develop your own vision for what you yourself want to do, because you're going to have a sense of, why did this not work? Why did this work? That you've seen time and time again, not just by watching the television show, but by being there, the rehearsals, the everything. But he doesn't have to deal with the added stress of being in the bubble with all those people. You can really just focus on your number. He's doing media, that's not what I'm saying, but it's not the same. As someone who has been on that tour, it's not the same. So he can really focus. He's very creative. He's done a lot of his own stuff himself. He's very hands-on, because might be misremembering the quote, but he said something to the effect of, well, I've done it this long, so I would like to be able to prove that it can be done without the backing of a big label. So I love
that idea.
I was playing producer when Lisa was doing this interview, so I was sitting backstage running the controls, and when he said that he's doing this without a label, my jaw dropped. That's not me saying that figuratively. My jaw literally dropped, and I told him about it afterwards. I said, yeah, I should have taken a screenshot and used it as a meme and showed you the face that you made me make. But yeah, so, and also he is very attuned to visuals because he does all of his stuff himself with doing his music videos. He's editing all of that himself, and he talked about that in the interview where he was saying something about how it helps him to have a better understanding of what looks good on camera and what doesn't, and what he needs to do, and what's good for him to do, what's not good for him to do. So despite the lack of experience in Mello specifically, that's a huge advantage. People underestimate how they come across on camera if they've never been on camera. So I definitely think that I would be shocked if he didn't get one of the top 4 spots. And especially with there being so many new people who don't have the level of experience that he does, I'm not particularly worried. To be honest, I think it would be best for him to go to AC, because then his song comes out right away. So whatever hype he gets by coming out and presumably doing a good job, then everybody can immediately start streaming him and really having him be a presence in their daily whatever when they're playing music on whatever streaming platform they use. So I think that would be better for him if you were to tell me to choose. It's not me saying that, oh, it's bad if he goes direct, but I think that especially because this is week 2, there are several more weeks before all the songs are released. So I think that if he goes to AC, that will be the absolute best result for him overall, with taking that into account.
I completely agree. And I think what people don't realize is obviously you go into a semi-final and you hope you progress, and most will want to go to the final. Let's take Danny Saucedo for an example. Danny is in the final. That means that there will be a 4 or 5 week gap between him performing this song and people actually getting to listen to it for the first time, streaming it and downloading it. Someone like Danny doesn't have anything to worry about because he has the name, whereas when you have sort of an upset where a very unknown act makes it into the final, that's not always necessarily the best thing, because that means that come the final and the song's being released, you're stuck in a sea of really big names who've just released their song, and you tend to sort of fall lower down the pile. Whereas, you look at Anna Bergendahl, when she came back 2 years ago, she went to Under the Hansen. She had what, 3 or 4 weeks of the song becoming a very big radio hit in Sweden before Under the Hansen. She is to date the only person who has won her jewel, winning every single age demographic. And yeah, the song didn't, light a fire in the final, but it gave her a very successful song that became a hit in Sweden. It charted very well. And then that gave her the platform to come back with Kingdom Come. And this is what we're talking about with Patrik. This is the kind of that needs to go to Under Hansen. It needs to be released straight away so people can start listening to the song, get excited about the song. And then if he makes the final, he'll probably have more impact that way rather than going direct on Saturday. I think, like kind of you said, I'd be very surprised not to see him progress. And that is mainly down to, it's not all about the song, it's the entire package. And this is a guy who understands the creative process of what this contest is and what works and what doesn't work. Patrik's not stupid. And even if he's not doing this without a label, he will, again, have been very hands-on in terms of what he wants to create as an image on Saturday. And this is a less competitive heat. Had Patrik been competing last week, I'd have some concerns, but it's a much easier field to stand out with the right song and performance. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed, but I really want to see Patrik progress on Saturday.
Yeah, and also his boyfriend is a photographer, a professional photographer. So that's just another advantage, that you have someone in your close circle that has a set of skills that you might not know. That's also why a lot of his promo tends to look so good, because first of all, he was learning how to edit his own clips and whatnot, but also when it comes to photography, that he has someone there that can explain things and have that knowledge of really technical stuff that you wouldn't know as a person who isn't a professional photographer. Mm-hmm. So again, I'm really not worried about him advancing. I'll probably still tell Lisel, you have to vote for him because we had him on. It's bad etiquette. If he does a good job, we have to vote for him. I told her last week, I said, Lisel, are you voting for Arvingana? And she did. Okay, cool.
I really hope this is it. Patrik is not going to win Melodifestivalen. That's very unlikely, but this could be the platform that launches his name, that, gives him that platform that people will start to know who he is. And maybe he'll come back in another year as a more known artist. But this, for an act like this is such a crucial year, doing it for their first year and getting everything right. And Patrik has got all the essential ingredients to become, quite a successful name in this contest. So I really hope all the best for him on Saturday. Moving on to the sixth act of this week, and that is this week's show opener, which is Anton Ewald with the song New Religion.
I'm so excited.
I don't know what to expect. This is, it's been...
He's bringing back his boys. It's the same, we're going back to 2013. It's Daniel, it's Robin.
So we're going down the begging route more than the natural route.
Well, those were the same guys. It's the same dancers. He always brings his boys.
No, listen. I mean, in terms, because obviously you've interviewed Anton, so you know a bit more. But I mean, stylistically, because what he did in 2013 was mega. Like that
song still slaps, by the way.
Really does. It's such a good song. Natural.
Anton Mamberg Hordorf Segerstad is a genius, and not all of the new kids that followed the contest know about him, because he has decided he's too cool for school and he doesn't really
He has better
show up
things to do. He's
he doesn't really
successful.
show up to do the show anymore, but he really did the damn thing. So when he created that song, his fingerprints are all over it. You can, if you know Anton's work, this is so confusing, right? Because it's two Antons. If you know Anton Segerstad's work, you can tell from that sound that it's very him, just the way he produces. But
the production, again, the new kids aren't going to know this name. If you don't, you should get yourself educated, know it. But Anton's name as a songwriter and as a producer, you know, when you see his name on a song and you hear the song, you know exactly what he's contributed to the song. You can just hear it. And Mello lost, you know, I completely understand why he no longer participates as a songwriter and producer, but, you know, that was a huge loss for Mello as a TV show, because the songs he had slapped. I remember 2013 was my very first final in the arena. If I remember right, Anton went on 4th. And it was the first number of the night where everyone around me was like, okay, we're going to get up, we're going to dance, we're going to clap. And this was the one that set off my first ever final. So, I mean, I don't really want to talk about Natural because that's a completely different thing. But Begging was, I think, one of the most high impact debut acts we've had in Mello in decades. No one knew who this guy was.
Well,
he came in, really.
No, listen. The stands knew about Anton because this is okay. I'm uncovering old skeletons that people want staying in there, and they don't want to know how embarrassing we all were. But if you were in the Swed Pop scene, and if you were following artists like Danny and Eric, who were kind of the prime people, there were certain people that you saw all the time because they would dance for them and choreograph for them, but dance for them. Anton was one of those guys. Alvaro was also one of those guys. Eden would also pop up sometimes. So a lot of those guys, the stands already knew who Anton was because he is the pretty boy. So people always remembered because you see him and you're a thirsty 12-year-old girl or whatever, you're going to remember who Anton is. So everybody, I'll put it to you this way. The stands, Anton was not new to the stands. It was surprising maybe, oh, he's a singer now, but
it was his introduction as a performer in that respect. He danced for, you know, I remember him in the number for Amazing for Danny Saucedo, you know, 9 years ago now. I remember him I think he actually choreographed that number himself as well.
I think so. I don't remember. I didn't. Lisel did the interview. I don't think she asked about that. So not really.
He's back. It's been 7 years. I'm sure a lot has changed, but from what I can gather, the aesthetic and the style and the expectations should be the same. Anton's not coming back to do something revolutionary, as in do something new and surprise. And I don't mean that in a bad way either. I think he's going to come back and it's going to be very familiar.
Okay, well, you haven't seen Lisel's interview because this is the whole thing where when the lineup was announced and they said Anton's name, I just kind of went, what? Why is he back? And I was not... The only name that I had a reaction to was... The only name I had a reaction to was Arving Arna. Everyone else I was just kind of going, okay, or huh, or who are you? Because newcomers, obviously. But for Anton, it wasn't until he came on and did the interview with Lisel and just kept hanging out and we chatted for so long that I'm about to edit a long video of just a bunch of chaos of me yelling at him. It was very chaotic. And he's such a good sport. That was the whole thing, is he completely won me over. He has such a good personality. He has such a good attitude, a sense of humor, a work ethic where he's much more hands-on with what he's doing than people might necessarily give him credit for, because a lot of people, and I will totally cop that I've been just as judgmental, where you just look at him and you go, okay, pretty white boy, next, got it. I know what the gig is. Pretty white boy, next. And to be fair to me, for being judgmental, he got his record deal because, and he said this in the interview, so I can say that this is what happened. He was one of the dancers for Andres Lundstedt's number in 2012 and the choreographer. And when there's a point where he is very visible on screen, the CEO of Universal Music Sweden saw him and just thought he looked so great. So then he called him up and said, I want to offer you a record deal. That is pretty privilege. That is some pretty
very pretty privilege.
That's pretty privilege. And straight up asked him, oh, can you sing? And he just kind of went, eh. And that's what he said. That's not me having a go. That's what he said. He didn't even know what a demo was at the time. So he has come a long way. It's not just, oh, you put someone on pause for 7 years and then you unpause and then they're back. He's not the same. I'm not saying that he's going to have a complete stylistic overhaul, but I think he's much smarter and more just thoughtful and more hands-on with being creative and his artistry, that I don't think this is a matter of you just kind of hand off the reins to someone else and you're not really here trying to it's not that I'm not saying that he's here desperate to win, but I think he's very determined to do a good job. And that can be something subjective in the sense of it's not so much about the results, but to just really deliver a strong performance that is going to be worthy of being on television and being in the contest and reintroducing himself to the public. And also, I just think that his energy is very different now because he talked about how he's actually very shy. And so a lot of us back in the day, we did not know Anton's personality like that. He has a really good personality. That's why I'm so charmed and won over by him. I know what he looks like. I've been aware. I know. There are a bunch of white boys that look whatever. It doesn't matter to me. I don't care. And also he's married. So any of you if you want to act up online, just remember he's married. And you might say something thirsty and then I'm going to show it to him. To be fair, he thinks the thirst tweets are funny. So keep sending them. But just I'm letting you know. So he completely took me by surprise. I was not checking for him like that. But now that's who I'm most interested in seeing, especially because I love that team, that trio of dancers. They're such good friends, and they're all dancers. This is not you being a singer and you have two dancers. They are all dancers. So they're going to do, and he's aware that he has to train and it's a whole thing. So some people have had a go about the vocals. It's been 7 years. So I'm not saying that the vocals will be amazing or not. I'm just saying that I think he's probably worked on it at some point over the last 7 years and that he knows that he's going to dance for this number. So I'm presuming he's been working hard to make sure that he's in good shape and he can hopefully do a decent job. And I'm excited. And he's the show opener. So they're saying, right, we're going to start off with a bang. And when it comes time to do that recap, it's going to be Anton and then just kind of all these new people. And we don't know if any of them will be competitive or not. And then Patrik and daughter. So then it's really just going to go, all right.
It's just clicked. He actually has the same running order slot as he did in his debut year. He opened the second semi-final when he performed Begin.
It's 2013 again. It's 2013 again.
I think of the 7 acts we had this week, Anton is the act I'm most confident in terms of delivering a television-worthy stage show. Anyone who is aware of Anton Ewald, and knows his choreography background, this is someone who, first and foremost, is a dancer over a singer, and that for him is very important to put into the show. Anton Ewald is never going to stand there and sing a dramatic ballad. It's not his thing. What he's going to do is come in with the tempo, with the energy. He's going to sell he's very charismatic still. He will sell the hell out of this performance. I'm sure there will be plenty of people Saturday night who will check him for his vocals. But this is a television show. It's not a singing contest.
Not the Voice.
It's not The Voice. I mean, I have no doubt that Anton will have one of my favorite songs. I was a big fan of Begin. The studio cut, I really enjoyed Natural as well. Shout out to Jon and Vic there. But this, I can just see where this is going. This has also got Jonas Wallin, who's co-wrote on the song, who I believe is behind both of Victoria's first 2 entries in Mello, Save Me and As I Lay Me Down. It's got a good team behind it. You feel very safe with this number. Before you've heard it or seen it or heard the song, you feel very safe. I do not see any realistic scenario where Anton doesn't go to the top four on Saturday. I don't see it. He's absolutely contending to go to the final. And I have much, much higher expectation on Anton than I probably did Danny Saucedo last week. Again, this is someone who just understands stage shows, aesthetic, and choreography. And you're not going to have Anton stuck in a box for the whole 3 minutes. He is going to utilize the space he has. I think very much like Arvignana, I think Anton will use the fact he's got one of the most advanced stages they've ever had, and they can do a lot more with that. I feel very comfortable with Anton, and I think we're going to get a great performance on Saturday. And I would be stunned if he didn't place top three. Of course, it's Mello. There's absolutely room for upset, and it has been 7 years since he has competed. But I just feel very safe. I don't see a scenario where this doesn't progress.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's got experience with television as a dancer and as a choreographer, including at Mello. He's done backing vocals and he's competed at Mello before, but not so long ago that it feels like it's a completely new world. I mean, the staging is very different, to be fair, this time, but the stage is different every year, so that's not that weird. But also, he helped with the staging for Victoria the first time she came. So
I completely forgot about that.
Mm-hmm.
Of course,
yeah, we talked
which
about
is which is probably why he knows Jonas Fallon is a songwriter. I remembered that, but I've not thought about that in years. So
yeah,
again, that's another thing. He has a creative eye, and he knows what works in a stage show. And what if you want to talk about natural, no, that didn't hit as hard as begging. But in terms of a stage show, he still delivered a good number. There was concept there,
and they can dance.
They can dance. I think what's going to make a lot of, especially maybe not so much the new fans of the contest, but those who've been watching as long as we have. I didn't know until you just mentioned that the same trio was coming back that did begging. That now I know that. Like I'm quite mind blown. The fact we're getting it's
I
like
screamed. I yelled out loud. My
reunion.
cat got mad at me because she was sleeping when I was sitting backstage and he said that to Lisel. And I came on after the interview was over, and I'll probably put it in the cut of what I'm going to upload so you'll see me where I come in. I just said, no, I just have to say, when you said that Koivu and Robin are coming back, Robin doesn't even live in Sweden anymore. He only comes when Anton is doing it. So
I think we're going to have our minds blown on Saturday.
I'm so in my feelings. This was, like, to me, this harkens back to when I actually had fun watching Mello with no baggage. You know what I mean? This was before I ever did any press. This was just about bangers, pop bangers. Oh, but wait a minute. If this is 2013 again, does that mean we're going to have a Janet Leon incident next week? There's always some nonsense that happens in semifinal 3. You know what? Let me not get into it because I don't think I mentioned Janet Leon in the interview. I don't need to go down that traumatic path again.
If anyone is going to do a Janet Leon in semi-3, it will be Charlotte Perrelli. But I don't think that one would concern you too much.
I'm just thinking about Janet Leon and I hope she's doing okay.
Oh,
I love that you didn't know. Oh, I guess we've not talked about it. Yeah, but Koivu and Robin and Anton all together again.
The more I think about that, the more excited I get for the possibility that the thing is, you've got to remember with Beggin. Beggin did not have this big elaborate stage show. It wasn't about that. It was a very simple concept. He didn't have, you can have up to 8 people, I think, on the stage of Melodifestivalen, and Anton just one of the 3 of them. And I think that is one of the most high impacted numbers we've ever had with so few people on the stage. That choreography was so sharp. The way, again, it's not just singers, the way dancers have to communicate with the camera is so important. And the way they are, you remember that choreo. It's been 8 years since Begging, and you remember the choreo. The oh my God. I'm
Koivu's faces. Koivu's faces. I brought this up to Anton. I swear. I told him, I said, listen, because I told him about the episode that we recorded that we didn't end up using. but we were talking about Anton. I told him about that, and I straight up told him that, yeah, I'm helping my friend with, they're doing their own show about Mello, and we were just talking about you. And I was being very over the top, and I said to my friend, listen, I will always have nostalgia for Anton Ewald, because without him, we would not have the iconicness of Koivu making faces in the begging number. And he just thought it was so funny. But then again, that boy was laughing at every other thing I said. And to be quite honest, I am not that funny. So I don't know what he was doing that day, that he was just that easy to make bust up laughing, but it was a thing. I posted a promo clip of it. Some people have watched it, some people have not. Anton has seen it. He followed me after the interview. That was a thing.
Oh, yes.
I was going, are we friends now? Okay.
I can't wait. I was looking forward to Anton's performance before the show today. I'm freaking so excited. Now that I know what I know is coming now, I'm not ready. My God, even Dotter should be a little bit scared, actually, maybe. Damn.
I mean, I don't know. I don't have an opinion on that either way, but I think that we're going to have a more peaceful week, in the sense that, to me, I have a very difficult time imagining any other result besides Anton and Dotter going direct and Patrik going to AC, a newcomer getting to go to AC. Patrik, it's a great result for him to get AC because of everything we already talked about, with his song being able to come out and not have to share the spotlight with as many other names. So, but yeah, what a way to open the show. The return of Anton Ewald. Who knew? Listen, going into this year, I was so in my head. I thought Eric Saad will, of all the new It Boys that are coming back, I think Eric Saad will definitely have it together in a way that really stands out. And I also assumed that Alvaro would, of all the, this is the thing, I talked about this with Anton, where I talked about how it's this full circle moment of all these It Boys that are from a decade ago that are all coming back. Yeah, because Alvaro was in that scene. Alvaro was in that scene. He was always dancing for Danny. He was always in that scene. I think he was in Eric's popular number.
Yeah,
I think he was one of the...
I remember, for those who don't know, obviously Alvaro Estrella, who will be in next week's show and participated in Mendez last year. Alvaro was sort of one of the dancers that the pop boys would go to when they said, I need a dancer who can do vocals as well. So Alvaro Estrella was one of the acts that went to Eurovision with Eric Saade. I believe he also went with Sergei Lazarev.
Yeah, You Are the Only One.
Yep, he went to, Alvaro is one of those boys that they go to, like, you can sing and you can dance, like, we need you on this number. Speaking of that, I didn't realize it before, but I'm glad to see that of those sort of four big pop boys, they have had the decency to separate them throughout each semi-final, and they didn't, think, oh, let's stick two of them in the same, because that's not fair. They all deserve their chance.
I would have fought. Actually, no, you know what? If they had put Eric and Danny in the same semifinal, I would have lived for the drama. I would have lived for the drama. I would have lived for the drama. Can you imagine if we get all four of them at the finals? I'm going to be screaming. I'm going to be going, what year is this? It's going to be so funny. And hopefully there will be some drama, because I love a mess. And, they'll be on their best behavior, but I know it'll be a mess. I'm just here for the mess. No, but that's the thing is, so I was assuming that those two were going to be the ones that I was going to really go, yeah, Eric will probably have the best overall number that I will, because he's done it a certain number of times. He's stayed in the bubble in a sense. And I just feel like there's I had certain assumptions. And then I thought that Alvaro would have the best, because I think he's doing something more Latin, and I love a good Latin pop.
The song is called Baila Baila, so...
Yeah, so I was totally ready to hear that, but I was not checking for Danny or Anton. And then Anton, he came on and he did his interview, and he was just the most delightful person, and he's so much smarter than I gave him credit for. And I'm completely not a fan in the sense of, I'm not 12. I'm not anyone's fan, but
There's just like a respect for the artist and
yeah. Oh, he's great. And he's got a great sense of humor.
maybe Danny will see the show on Saturday and see Anton's number and think, I'm just not going to turn up to the final. What's the point?
Oh, the drama.
I can promise one thing, and is that Anton's number on Saturday will be 10 times what we saw last week from Danny Saucedo. I can guarantee that now.
The other thing is that because Anton is a professional dancer, professional choreographer, he still teaches dance classes. Can you imagine going to a dance school and going, I want to take a hip hop. Yeah, I want to take a hip hop class. Anton, can you teach me hip hop? Can you imagine? But and that's completely by choice. It's not like he's struggling. He just said he really enjoys teaching, so he likes to do it, which I think is sweet. But yeah, but the thing is that because they're all such strong, skilled dancers, even if you didn't have the most complicated number with props and running around, even if you had them mostly staying at one spot, but doing really intense choreography and some nice camera angles, we'd probably all get our life anyway, because they're not gonna, Robin is not coming from wherever the hell he lives to come back to Mello because Anton is in it, to do a mediocre, some mediocre choreography. No. This is gonna be a serve. They're gonna do the damn thing. They're gonna give us a show. Really, I feel like we need to give them a name of the group, this boy band or whatever, because this is one of those dream team situations, and I'm so excited. This will probably be our longest section for any of the artists, but I had a lot to say. Because I spent over 2 hours with him on a StreamYard call, so anyway, I yelled at him about Greece, and he completely put up with it.
He obviously has high tolerance. Our final act, number 7, and closing the second semi-final this week, is the return of Dotta with the song Little Tot, which she has again co-wrote, like she did her previous 2 entries, as well as Dino, her fiance, who also co-wrote on Bulletproof. I think it's very easy to say that Dotta is the most anticipated act going into this week's show. I think before we got into the whole circus and started the show last week, I think it was clear there were 4 or 5 big names in this contest that were looking to potentially contend, and I believe Dotta is one of them. She's got a very prestigious spot, closing the second semi-final, which is usually a super favorable slot in this running order. She has promised that this will be something completely different to Bulletproof, which I think will disappoint a lot of the stands. I think a lot of people are hoping to see Bulletproof 2.0 on Saturday. Then they're not going to. Dotta has been going for quite a number of years now, and stylistically, she has such a spectrum of different genres that she covers and different approaches that she takes to music. And she's released 4 singles since Bulletproof, all quite different as well. I don't think anything really resembled Bulletproof. So again, I don't really know why people are expecting Little Tot to be a resemblance. She has described the song as an up-tempo lullaby in which she is singing to her younger self and advising her younger self not to make some of the mistakes that she made as a child. So it's obviously a very, personal number. And in terms of stage show, Dotta has had her hand in the staging of both of her previous numbers. And I know it was a close friend that did the staging for Bulletproof, and she came with that to the contest. That wasn't something that SVT had put together themselves. So I think, Dotta is again someone who very much understands concept, staging, what works and what doesn't work. And I think she could quite possibly have the most elaborate stage number on Saturday. There is, I don't have it with me, but there is a quote. She had talking to someone from the press when describing her stage show, and says, it will start out very dark, very mysterious, and it is going to be something that bursts into a ray of light, and it's a song that is very, very powerful as well. So there's always room for upset. 2 years ago, Margaret had the closing position in the semi-final, and she didn't actually progress into the top 4. So there is room for upset, but I think coming off being a runner-up has been a very smart move. I think if if you're riding a wave and you want to do well in this contest, then strike while the iron's hot. I think she's been very smart to come back again for a second year, and I it's very hard to say what to expect. She's done two completely different stage numbers, and I have no idea what to expect for the third time.
Mm. Well, I feel like I've said this before in different conversations about this show, is that I never envy people who come back as the runner-up,
No,
because you can only either win or you didn't improve on your result. So that is just a challenge in and of itself, but I'm sure she's a woman with her own mind, so if she really didn't want to come back, she would not have done so. I don't think anyone is going to be able to twist her arm into coming back just because they want her to come back. If she doesn't want to come
no.
back, I don't think she would have come back. So that's good. I don't really have much to say or expect, because I feel like we saw such a stark difference in the execution of staging. So we've seen what happens when your staging concept is not executed well the first time she was in it. And then we've seen what happens when your stage concept is definitely executed well, the way it's supposed to, in her second run. So hopefully both of those experiences have been ones where she's able to learn. This is how I get the vision to come together, and this is what needs to not happen, because then it will not work when it comes time to do it. I don't really have much to say as far as anticipation to do with her song or anything specific, because obviously we haven't heard snippets yet. We haven't seen rehearsal clips yet. I'm sure though that since she does like to have a show, that I will probably have a lot to say one way or the other once it's delivered, because I appreciate the fact that she's not one of those people that comes and does minimalism, because we know I don't like it, especially at this show. And also, we talked about this last week, the worst thing you can do at Mello is bore the audience, bore me. I don't want to be bored. So I don't think I will be bored. And that's great. You don't want a boring show closer. So it really is, I think it will be an anticlimactic show just as far as results go. I don't know if we'll really have anything that can shock like what happened last week, where you go, "Oh my god, that's the gag of the episode." But
To be honest, we always sort of say, maybe not necessarily this year, although we haven't heard the songs, but it tends to be the second semi-final in Mello does seem to be the most competitive in terms of songs, but I also feel that the second semi-final is also the safest heat in predicting the result. It always seems to be the acts everyone, I think 2 years ago was the biggest shake-up. Margaret didn't progress further. You had Oscar from Phono didn't progress further, and it was Malu Pritz that went through to the final. So we had a big shake-up there, but I think apart from that, semi-2, you get a very comfortable, safe result that keeps everyone happy. Everyone is looking at Dotto and Anton for this week, with Patrik as well as a dark horse. And I think just looking at the lineup and what we can expect to know what works in Mello and what doesn't work, we have a safe-ish top three, safe-ish. But she has every opportunity to win the semi-final. She's described the staging as being very futuristic and something that hasn't been done before. Saying that, Danny Saucedo also said his staging had never been done before, and that doesn't necessarily mean good things. Sorry. For me, this is the act that I'm most excited for this year. Anyone who knows me personally knows that I had very strong feelings for Bulletproof last year. Of the 28 acts this year, Daughter is definitely the one that I have the most expectations for, the one I'm most anticipated for. And this would break my heart if this didn't, even if it goes direct to the final. Like, I hope to see something that I'll think that can win Melodifestivalen. we know the females always have a lot tougher than the men do.
It wasn't always like this, though.
It
Women used
wasn't.
to dominate the contest. It used to be a struggle for a man to win. And then Mons came and he had a really great song and a really great show. And then ever since, it's just, I don't know. I wonder if there's some sociological thing that you can dig into that would account for that. Like
possibly
that made men become more competitive. Maybe that made men, I don't know. Because when you think about it, a lot of the men that won after that, Robin and Benjamin, we have these really spectacular shows. Even Jan Lundvik, I mean, I don't know. Well, to be fair, all three of those were staged by the same team. So
by the dream team.
It's not quite the same thing, but
no.
Yeah, it's no, but it did not used to always be like that. But to that point, one thing that I've thought of now that we've been talking about this, so we had Danny go through last week. Preliminary anticipation, Anton will go through this week. And then it seems like Eric will probably go in the last week. I'd have to look again through the semifinal 3, but I feel like Alvaro has a decent shot at going because it'll be a fun up-tempo dance number, presumably. So once we get to the finals and we have multiple guys
that could cancel everyone out.
It's that whole crew from a decade ago, all there, all dancing and doing. I don't know exactly how identical their numbers will be, but that'll be really interesting because for as much as people say that they want more women to be in the finals because they love pop divas, and I'm not saying anything bad about wanting that to be a thing, but what you have to remember is that when it's a contest, if you have people that have any type of similarity to an audience where they don't necessarily think about things that in depth and things can kind of start to mesh together, then if you have too many similar demographics or similar staging concepts and shows, then they do start to cancel each other out to the larger masses. So perhaps, regardless of how upset people were last week where they're going, why are all the girls getting eliminated? If we have a lot of men in the finals and Daughter is there, you should be happy. If that's your girl and you want her to have a good shot at winning, that's an advantage.
That's true. I mean, look at 2009. You had both EMD, which had Danny Saucedo, and Mons Summerlow in the final, which were two huge favourites. And even both did well. There was an absolute clash in the voting, which divided both of those acts. And then you had Milena Ehrman and Carolina Fuglas with much less popular numbers, amongst the fans. They ended up storming ahead because of, and we have seen in this contest before, where too many men does produce a little bit of it. Unless, 2011, I know Danny and Eric were the top two, but that final was a two-person final. There was no one else really contending to win. But no, you're right. If we see Anton go through this week, Alvaro next week, and then Eric, of the 12 slots, that's 1/3 of the lineup with very competitive male artists. And
we have Arving Arne, that's more men. And both of the AC from last week were men. If Patrik goes through AC, and he seems like he will have a decent song and number, so if that were to be one of the qualifiers, then we could end up with a lot of men in the finals. And if Daughter, you can tell that this has been set up for her to just run this semifinal. If she's there, that will be a huge advantage. So people need to see, this is what I'm talking about. People get so in their emotions about this show that they forget to think about the bigger picture, and that there are always so many more factors that if you're trying to do analysis and not just react to things with your emotions, then it's not always what you think that it is. You might think something is what is bad and what is good. So you wanting women in the finals, and then all of the women got eliminated last week. So in your mind, you're going, I don't like this. This is a bad thing. But then if Daughter is your girl and you wanted her to win last year, and now she's back again and you want her to win.
I was actually, funnily enough, earlier on, I was looking at the 2013 results. If you remember, 2013 was quite famous for only having one woman make it to the final. It was a male-dominated year. That was Louise.
Are we revisiting the most traumatic year of Melodifestivalen? Is that really what we're doing right now? You want to do that?
Very briefly, Louise was the only woman with a completely non-competitive song.
And what was the name of the song?
Only the Dead Fish Follow the Stream. It was nothing that would usually do well, but being the only female in that final, she came in 4th place in the televote. 4th place and it wasn't even like Louise had a competitive pot number. It was something that you would hear and think this would come bottom 2 or 3 in a semi-final. But because it was the only female act in the final, that elevated it so much. So like you said, it's very likely we are going to have a very male-dominated final. When we look at the big favourites, you've got Alvaro next week, you've got Tusi closing the semi-final. They're very likely to be, the ones that go through. And it's either in the final heat, both of last week's Sandra Hansen acts are male. Dotter is going to have a competitive number, and if she ends up being one of very few women in the final, that could very much play to her advantage. I think one of the issues last year with
it could be her versus the Mamas again.
I can see it. Ever since it was confirmed they were both coming back, I have said I can see a scenario where it comes down to the final 2 in the televote, and we are sat waiting for Dotter and the Mamas to. Could you imagine her just having that 2 years? That was traumatic enough for a lot of people last year. I remember that pause after the Mamas got their televote score and we were waiting on Dotter. That is by far the longest they waited, and they dragged out that waiting, and I can't go through that again. It was like no ulti no shade. I adore the Mamas, and I was so happy for them. They deserve all the success in the world, but in that moment, it's like Dotter is my girl. Like, it's got to be Dotter. It's got to be Dotter. And if anything, I would rather see the number on Saturday and think this doesn't have a chance to win, rather than have all this faith installed in the act, and then we get to the final and then we have an upset. That's always sort of the most difficult ones to stomach when you're so invested in the act. But I think the thing that gives me that surety with Dotter is that this is her. She hasn't gone to SVT and said, put together a song and a show for me. This is something she's created herself. She's very into fashion, into style. This is something that she'll be very confident doing. And like you said, she had a very bad run first year. There was clearly a great concept that was executed very poorly, whereas it all came together for her last year. So who knows? It could all fall apart, and we could see Cry 2.0, and she doesn't advance any further. In that case, I won't be watching the rest of the year. No, I joke. I'd be upset, but I wouldn't be that upset. But no, I think overall we have a very interesting week this week. Definitely less competitive than last week. And I think we will have a safe result. I think we will see Dotter progress to the final. I think we will see Anton, with the possibility of Patrik qualifying if the song is good enough. And then it's kind of down to the other 4 acts in to fight for that final spot.
Yeah.
But who knows? Maybe Anton will end up doing so big that we'll be sitting here this time next week thinking maybe Anton is the winner of Melodifestivalen.
I'm just excited he's back. It's not even, I don't really care who wins. It's so irrelevant to me in the grand scheme of things. I just want the show. So it's just so funny that all of these guys are back in it. And it's very strange to watch it and go, what year is this? It feels like 2011, 2012, 2013 all over again.
It feels like, kind of like with Drag Race, this feels like an all-stars lineup. It's kind of picking up on the biggest acts that have ever taken part. We've got Danny, we've got Eric, we've got Anton, we've got Dotter. The Mamas are back. Charlotte Pirelli is here. Jessica Andersson. It's just...
Arvingana. Oh my God.
Arvingana.
I have to come through this screen and shake you by the shoulders for forgetting to mention Arvingana.
Forgive me, Lord, for I have sinned. this honestly is a dream contest for anyone who has been watching this show a long time. Again, I don't think the younger and the newer fans will appreciate it, but there are just so many acts here that we grew up watching Mello, and I can't emphasize like how good the lineup is this year. I just hope that everyone is able to deliver in songs, and I think they will. I think the majority of these acts have got enough respect for themselves that they wouldn't come back just for the sake of like Eric Saada is not coming back with a mediocre song. That's just a given. Not when he's been
some people respect themselves enough to not do that.
We won't mention any names, but well, thank you everyone for tuning in. We will be back next week with next week's show, going through another list of names, and
we'll talk about SAMI too, the results, the show.
Yes. Oh, yes, we'll be back. But before week 3, we will be back early next week to discuss the potential mess and the possible chaos that SAMI 2 may or may not be.